Hello and welcome to Jessie James Beads. We're today working with Market Fresh Mini Mix in Mascarpone. So let's learn to make this decadent earring together. So here's our earring that we're going to create together. If you've never seen Mascarpone, this is a little glance at what you get in the box. So many beautiful colour combinations and these gorgeous little crowns. You can make little royal things. How gorgeous are they? What a beautiful selection of colours. So I've just pulled out the beads that I've chosen to work with. I've gone for one of the tassels. I've gone for that luxurious smoky quartz colour bicone. I've chosen a gunmetal filigree bead cap and an assortment of other beads. Now you can obviously vary these to your heart's content. It's a luxurious looking piece for sure. In terms of the wire that we'll be working with, I have around about 15 inches of 18 gauge round wire. I'm working with a lovely copper colour, which just teams so beautifully with all of the tones in this gorgeous mascarpone bead mix. So I'm going to ensure that that's nice and warm, smooth through all the way. Now I will be working today with my little memory wire finishing pliers, but you could just as easily use your round nose pliers. If you wanted to use round nose pliers, it's very helpful to just pop a little line with a marker pen so that you can get a repeated size on your loops. So what we're going to do is start approximately just about 40% of the way along. So here's half, we're just a couple of inches to one side. And what we're going to do is to create a series of 5 loops by just rotating, either rotate the wires or rotate the pliers, whichever is easiest for you. Obviously I have a lot of fun to deal with because there's a camera in the way. So let's get that first little loop into position. Now you can see how that looks like a little pair drop down at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is use my bent chain nose pliers to just straighten that line up. So now there's a great big straight long line, and what we're going to do now is to make another 4 loops. Now I'm always going to be rotating my wire around so that it crosses on the same side. So if I take the tail that lives over on this side and put it behind the first loop, just bring that underneath, what you'll find is that each time you create that loop, your wire will be moving in the same direction. What that ends up showing is a very similar looking pattern when you look directly at the loops. So I'm going to again flatten that down just to make sure that I am keeping everything nice and straight. If you have a straight line on your board, then you can pop that down, or you could always use a ruler. So once you've got your 5 loops into position, we can move on to the next stage. You're just repeating the same technique and trying to keep the same distance between each of those loops. So take your time and get your 5 little loops in the centre of your long length of 18 gauge wire, aiming to have the same gap between them. Now you may need to take a moment just to ensure that those sit straight on the line. And I'm being very, very gentle here with my pliers, just getting those to tilt slightly so that it's a nice smooth transition as you move across those loops. So I'm just going to add a little bit more warmth to either end of my wire. Do take your time, and the more you practice, the better you get at the loops. We're looking for a straight line along here. Now, if you come to it and you see that actually one of your loops isn't quite where you need it to be, you can actually move them along a bit. So this first loop is a little bit too close to the next one. So let's show you how to just move that along gently. So if you can get the pin of your pliers back in, what we're going to do is just push that end over slightly. Move the second side of the pliers and then just rotate that loop away, pushing the wire back, and you'll find that you can move that along so that you get a better even distance between each of the loops. So I'm going to use my thumbs and forefingers now just to put a little bit of warmth into this central section. I'm going to grab a round form. Now I'm lucky enough to have one of these beaded wooden mandrels, and this is the 22mm or 0.87 inch rod. Now you can of course use a marker pen or a nail varnish bottle, whatever you have around the home that works for you. And we're going to now create a lovely round shape. Initially we're just crossing over the two tails like so. Flip that back up the other way. And then we'll take a look at how that appears. Now what we're looking for is to have that central of the 5 loops opposite the 12 o'clock position. So it needs to sit down at 6 o'clock. Sometimes you might need to just make minor adjustments by hand using your fine chain nose pliers just to get in there and give that a little bit of a tweak. Now when I'm making earrings I tend to do stages. So I will get to this point, I will get a nice long strip with those 5 loops and I'll make that again, and then I'll do this section and I'll do it on the second piece, always making sure that I have 2 that are exactly the same. So I'm just going to pinch that firmly to make sure that I'm using the correct rod before I make that little tie up at the top. So that does indeed look like the correct one. So I'm going to now estimate the halfway point, that 12 o'clock position. So if I push one of my wires up to 12 o'clock, you can also do this on the rod to make your life easier. Just need to make sure, give that a bit of a pinch, that everything is still equal and opposite. That does look good to me. So I'm going to use my round form. As I said, it could be a lotion or a nail varnish, or you could be really smart and get yourself some of these little babies. What we're going to do is we're going to take the tail that continues off at one side. We're going to make a bend in that across that upright 12 o'clock position. So I'm showing you that over the top because it's the easiest way for you to see what's going to happen. And then I'm going to push that all the way around. Now it needs to be firmly on your round form, but not so tight that you're in danger of breaking anything. This is also another good opportunity to make sure that your upright is indeed centralised. If it's not, you have the opportunity to just arch that over slightly if you need to. I'm then going to move the mandrel around to give myself 2 good wraps of wire on that upright at the 12 o'clock position before I remove it from the round form. So you can see that that looks pretty reasonable. You can obviously take a little bit more time, and I'm just going to tighten that up by very gently compressing. I'm not putting really very much pressure on there at all. Now another reason for doing this part by part is that you then have the opportunity to trim the tails on both of the sideways pieces to exactly the same length. And in that way you can guarantee that you'll get the same size coil just here. So I've got a piece that I made earlier. If you were making these two together, you just trim both of those tails to ensure that they are the same length. And hopefully what this will mean is that I will end up with 2 coils that are exactly the same. So let's add that coil over the front of the design. I'm going to use the smaller side of my memory wire finishing pliers to start coiling. Not a complete circle, but nearly there. Let's push that all the way around to generate a really glorious, oversized spiral that can sit down over the centre of our earrings. So go slowly. Go a lot slower than I'm moving, and then you'll end up with nice, neat spirals. So they look pretty similar to me. I'm not overly worried today by the difference, if there is any. But like I say, you have the opportunity to make these side by side, and then you can guarantee it will be the same. So let's complete the earring itself by adding on your chosen bead. I've gone for this gorgeous smoky quartz colour bicone. If you struggle to get a bead on your wire, sometimes it can be because there's a little kink at the end, so let's trim that end section away and try that again. Much easier. I'm now going to make a sideways loop with a little bit of a gap so that I can fill it with 3 wraps of wire up at the top. So let's push that over to the side. That looks good to me. And again, I'm going to use the smaller side of my bell making, of my memory wire finishing pliers. You can see we've got a little loop, and we're just going to wrap that onto the core of the design. Push that all the way around, 2, 3,
I think I might have gone slightly too large on that one. So again, do this step by step. So you have two pieces, two forms side by side, and then you can make that bend at exactly the same position. And then you'll know that you will have two identical coils. So let's just very, very softly finish that up without endangering our bead. So that's the main part of today's mascarpone tutorial. What we're going to do now is add on a couple of charms. I'm going to just show you one technique today, and then you can adapt it to add your other bits and pieces if you like. So I have some scrap wire available to me in that 1mm or 18 gauge. Let's just trim a section away of around about 4 inches. And then we'll flush cut the end. Now you can either make a simple loop or a coil down at the bottom of your chosen dangling section. So let's make a double spiral for you. Again, we're going to create that in exactly the same way as we did the spiral that sits over the face of the design. Push that all the way in to the non-dominant hand. We're going to go for a double spiral. Just take your time with this, go nice and slowly. Once you've got 2 rotations of wire, we're going to bring that away at a nice sharp angle, add our chosen bead. So I've gone for this gorgeous silver and clear crystal and one of these gunmetal colour filigree bead caps down over the top. Now when I made the other charm, I just did a simple loop at either end. So I'm going to show you now a simple loop, but I want my spiral to appear forwards on the earring, which means that I need to make my loop at 90 degrees. So if I pull that forwards, you can see there's my spiral, turn it through 90 degrees, there's the wire coming away. When I make the simple loop, which I'm going to show you now, they're both on the same axis. So let's grab one of these. Memory wire finishing or round nose pliers, whichever you prefer, and that's all there is to your simple loop. Trim your wire away, and then we're going to ensure that that simple loop where the wire is cut meets the angle change. Now you'll do that on both ends of a tiny scrap of wire, maybe 1.5 inches long, to add your other beads, and then it's just a case of opening up and adding onto the position on your earring that you desire. So let's just pop that through the outside loop. Like I said to you earlier, you've got so many bead choices in the mascarpone mix that you can add whatever you desire. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed the mascarpone really elegant and fabulous earrings, and I look forward to seeing you again. This is Jem at Jessie James Beads.